Alright guys, welcome back to Hero-Villain Mashup, where I take one hero or heroes and mash them up with villain or villains. And what would it be like if this villain was part of this hero's rogues gallery, basically. And today, as you can see from the title, yes, today's Hero-Villain Mashup is between Dipper and Mabel, and pretty much all of the Gravity Falls group. Either you call it the Mystery Twins or whatever. Today, and pretty much have them fight Dracula. What if Dracula was one of the monsters they had to face? I gotta say that, first off, that this is a very plausible character we may see in Gravity Falls in the future, depending on, if Alex Hirsch decides to continue on with the series, because he has talked about he didn't want this to be too long of a show. So, if this show continues onward, Dracula is a character we could see in an episode, because Dracula's pretty much public domain, and he works in this kind of supernatural series, so I think it would be really cool. It's a possibility, not saying it can't happen, it's just saying it could happen. So, what would it be like if Dipper and Mabel and the rest of the Gravity Falls gang, I guess you could call them, had to fight Dracula? What if Dracula was an opponent for them? So let's get into this. So, how I could kind of see Dracula showing up in Gravity Falls is maybe kind of go the route of something like the Batman vs. Dracula movie, which I still pretty much I really like that movie. And the story would be that Dracula's body was exhumed in the 18th century and moved from his home, moved from, Castle Dracula after he was killed by Van Helsing, and his body's been kind of sold through different private auctions, until Stan gets a hold of it. Yeah, Stan gets a hold of the coffin of Dracula to, what else? Show it to everybody. He really wants to show it off in part of his mystery tour, thinking that this is the real coffin, claiming that, this is the real coffin of Count Dracula. And Dipper, of course, being curious as he is, wanting to see if this is, the real thing, or Stan blew off a lot of his money for nothing, he decides late at night, when Stan's asleep, he decides to investigate the coffin. And cuts his finger, and it drips down into the corpse of Dracula's mouth after he opens it, and Dracula's reawakened, runs off because he's too weak, doesn't really notice Dipper, he hides, runs off and starts feeding on the people of Gravity Falls, and making his own, making himself back to his original body. So, what would this be like? What would this kind of battle between two kids and probably one of the most powerful vampires in history? What would that kind of be like? Now, Dracula is pretty much unlike anything Dipper and Mabel have ever really faced when you think about it in the Gravity Falls history thus far. I mean, you could say Bill Cipher, but Cipher was kind of playing with them. Dracula don't play. If Cipher really wanted to, he could have honestly really killed them. Dracula, on the other hand, killing is his first option. He doesn't play with his food. So, and the other thing is that Dipper and Mabel kind of use their own enemies, they kind of manage to outwit their enemies. Dracula, on the other hand, Dracula usually manipulates people to his own will. He can, hypnotize them, manipulate the situation, anything you could do. He's a master tactician. The dude was once known as Vlad the Impaler, for God's sake. So, it stands to reason that he's had hundreds of years, centuries of battle experience. He's had years upon years of battle experience. So, Dipper and Mabel have got to go really hard on this one, that this guy could kill them if he wanted to. Now, I could see that, but here's the other thing. I don't think Dracula would, at first, take either of the twins seriously. I mean, seriously. He would look at them and be like, children, they're no concern to me. And the other thing is that he's now in a world, well, not world, I should say. He's more in, a town where he could feed on, not just humans. He could feed on manitors, he could feed on gremmoblins, he can feed on he could feed on so many different people's blood, and even manipulate other creatures to do his bidding, One of Dracula's major powers is that he can control all creatures of the night. And there are a lot of things that go bump in the night in Gravity Falls, so he would have a menagerie of things to manipulate to his will. Let's also not forget that, Dracula plays on his enemies' weaknesses, and trust me, Dipper and Mabel have some weaknesses. Either, manipulating Seuss and Wendy, and, manipulating them, mind-controlling them, or even managing to turn them into vampires, or even, Mabel's friends into vampires, or, make them part of his vampire army. Among other things, Dracula is, let's not forget how, powerful he is. I mean, this is a guy who could go, if you don't count the sunlight, this guy and a few other weaknesses, Dracula's nearly unstoppable. And incredibly strong. And let's not forget that, Dipper and Mabel aren't really fighters, so they would have to play to their strengths, which is, their minds. But on the other hand, you have Dracula, who has a lot of, battle experience and, master tactician. But again, I think that kind of crippling arrogance, I think at first he would definitely say that, they're children, they're no threat to me. But first encounter, they throw a thing of garlic, they could spray him with, a thing of garlic, salt, they throw garlic salt in his face or something, and that leaves him wounded for a bit, and then he's like, okay, beast mode, I'm gonna kill these kids now. He could even, for all intents and purposes, turn Dipper and Mabel on each other if he wanted to. So, it's a terrifying, if they were in the show, they would be in a world of hurt. Seriously, they would be in a major, major world of hurt. Now, the other thing is that would Dracula ally himself with, Gideon or Cypher? Probably not. He probably would not, he consider it, he wouldn't belittle himself by allying with a human or some trickster. If anything, they would be actually, Cypher would be like, I'm not stepping into this, and probably step out of this, whereas Gideon, thinking that he would be, manipulating Dracula, on the other hand, Dracula would just be using him. Hell, I could even see Dracula using Robbie as his own, personal Renfield, him, or Robbie or Gideon as his own personal Renfield. More or less, having them do the daytime stuff while he's resting at night. So that's how I could kind of see it. And the other thing is that Gideon, he's not as smart as he thinks he is. So I could see that, thinking that, oh yeah, I have Dracula backing me now. I can take the Mystery Shack, take what's the secrets inside of it, and Dracula would be like, that's not happening. I just gotta kill these kids and everyone in there. You're just a pawn in my little game. So I could definitely see that. And you could even have, you could even have it that, most other vampires that are in Gravity Falls, because Mabel did make a passing mention that she did run into a group of vampires in one episode. So you could say that maybe other vampires are like, yeah, we don't want to affiliate ourselves with Dracula. No, he's, everyone, Dracula's the undisputed king of the vampires, but we've been self-governing ourselves for, centuries since he died, so we don't want to go back to him ruling us. Or, on the other hand, you could say that the other vampires are excited that they got their one true king back, and have Dracula be like King Arthur to these a evil version of King Arthur to them. So maybe you could go about that route. Anyway, moving on. Now, the other thing is that, with this, is that Dracula is... the other thing would be that Dracula would not be showing himself often. He would be in the shadows, literally sometimes, just kind of pulling the strings. I could see him easily putting the entire town under his sway. I could even see him that, Dracula, after he escapes, feeds on some people or some creatures throughout Gravity Falls. He restores himself and then becomes, he looks human, he looks back to his original self and returns as this, aristocratic, very, very wealthy person, and kind of puts everyone under his sway, like he's this. He would just have this he would have a lot of charm to him. And that's the kind of Dracula I like, honestly, is the Dracula that can be the well-dressed monster. The Dracula that can, look from this very suave, very sophisticated, almost like James Bondian type character, to just snap your fingers to this savage, wicked beast that is going to do nothing but kill you. No romance, no sparkling, none of that, just coming to get you and kill you. So it would be this would be an interesting matchup. And again, I could honestly see this in an episode of Gravity Falls, because again, Dracula's public domain, and he would fit right in with this universe. So I think it could happen. I mean, I'm not saying that, an actual episode where Dracula will actually be in there happen, but I could honestly see this as an episode of Gravity Falls, or even like this. Dracula could be the new season-long villain. Actually, I would like that. Is that if you have Dracula be this big season-long villain? Anyway, so you guys tell me, what would it be like if Dipper and Mabel had to fight Dracula? Do you think they could survive, or do you think Dracula would straight up kill them? Just comment below, let me know. And once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I will see you guys later.